Wonderful. Well, welcome everyone to this BNID reflection session on reconnecting to purpose and healing amid chaos. um, Definitely something that many of us are feeling in this particular moment. Ever since those executive orders came down in January, we've just seen kind of our entire industry put into tumult over the past few months and weeks, and things are continuing to evolve, and the impacts are being felt here and abroad, and for some of us very deeply and very personally. And so we felt it was important to have this session to be able to, come together, work with a coach, amazing coach like Catalina, and just take the moment to think about, for those of us who have either lost jobs or thinking how to navigate these changes, in what we can do and how we can think and support ourselves as we move forward. So maybe before I hand it to Catalina, just want to say a little bit about BNID. So this reflection session is hosted by the Boston Network for International Development, which we call BNID for short. And I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Nanako Tamaru, and I'm actually the outgoing executive director of BNID. And we are, just as it sounds, we're a network, we're a hub, we're a convener for individuals, organizations who feel passionately about international development or international aid more broadly. And so we like to put on events like this, being able to provide resources that we know that our community needs. We also host networking events and just gatherings. We also have, we're a hub for jobs, international development jobs, and events that are happening here in the greater Boston area. I'm going to put a couple links into the chat just in case if you're new into the BNID orbit. There are two opportunities we'd love to share with you. One is to sign up for our newsletter if you're not already on it. It goes out every other week. We share, obviously, events that BNID is hosting, but we also share what's happening in the international development community in Greater Boston, events that are being hosted by World Boston or others, job opportunities, what our members are doing and things like that. We also have a membership program, which I would highly recommend. We have it both for individuals and organizations, and that we really provide a space for international development professionals to come together to share learning, reflect on the changes that are happening in our sector, to network with one another, to maybe find future partners or employers. So it's really the paid membership program. We have member-only programming once a month or so as a way to, again, connect with other professionals that are doing this work. So that's just a way to have more of a touch point or to grow your network here in Greater Boston. And I will say we use Greater Boston quite broadly. I'm based in Vermont. We have folks in Maine, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, out into Western Mass. So kind of Greater Boston, New England area. So if you're interested, please check out our membership, check out the newsletter. And if you have any questions, of course, please feel free to reach out to myself. But enough about BNID. We're really here to talk with Catalina today. She is just an amazing coach and colleague, and I was just so excited when we got the opportunity to work with her to bring her skills and her ability to hold space and help people really reflect to do that together as a group today. So Catalina, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Nanako. And let me just stop sharing for a minute so that you can all see my face a little closer up, if that's a little better. Hi, everybody. My name's Catalina Quintero. So as Nanako mentioned, I'm a coach and I'm a facilitator. I focus on leadership coaching, and I was doing that actually a lot at USAID. And so, it was wonderful work that I got to do there, and unfortunately, obviously got stopped, cut short. Was doing also a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion work there. And before that, and I can actually go into the presentation because I have a little bit about that in there. So let me just share my screen again. And let me, so just to tell you a little bit about myself, I have been a leader in the field of conflict prevention and peace building for the past 19 years. That was my main sort of work. And, Nanako and I were colleagues at the Fletcher School way back when. And so, in these past, 19 years or so that I've been working, I've been doing work for, a lot of it was for the World Bank. I was leading teams working on conflict analysis and conflict prevention. I also worked for the Colombian government for a little bit, working on reintegration of ex-combatants. And then, fast forward, also worked for the US government, as I already mentioned. In that journey, I took a bit of a pivot and left the World Bank and decided to kind of find a way where both of these passions could converge, where I could still do the peace building work that I so much loved and had so much experience on, but that I could also do a lot of inner work that I needed at that moment, a lot of this reflection that we're going to do today. So I'll share with you some of that today. To then also do this pivot to coaching and leadership coaching and that I've been doing now. And so in an interesting way, these two worlds have kind of come together, because I was doing this coaching for the Bureau of Conflict Prevention and Stabilization at USAID. So and I do firmly believe, before I move on to the next slide, I just wanted to share that I think, I congratulate all of you who are present here today, because it does take a lot of courage to do a lot of the self-awareness work that we're going to hopefully get started with today. Obviously, it's only an hour and a half, so I encourage you guys to continue on this journey. If you're here, that's the first step. And that with that, genuinely we can achieve, all of the great work that we've all been doing, whether on conflict and peace building or on other kinds of international development, or even in your home with your relatives, with your loved ones. I think that that's really the one of the really beginnings to building peace or well-being in this world. So our objective for today, as Nanako was mentioning, is really to provide all of you with this space. I will provide you with some practical coaching tools, and we'll do a lot of reflection exercises. So what I wanted to say is this session is going to be a little different from a lot of the other typical career sessions, which are all great and good, and I'm sure you've all been to many of those, especially if you're in that career transition, or even just exploring new job opportunities. But this is definitely not going to be on career. This is going to be a space to reflect and to begin finding a renewed sense of purpose in your career, in your life. And you can apply this to many areas of your life, particularly your career. But I just wanted to make that also clear. And then the other part of this is that I'm going to be asking you to participate at times if you feel comfortable. So do so. You can do so in the chat, or you can always raise your hand. There's a little button, I believe, that where you can raise your hand to participate, and we'll give over the mic to you. Two important disclosures is, one is that I am not a medical practitioner or a psychologist. I know, and I guess maybe if you could type in the chat if you have, or even raise your hand, if you have ever been coached before, if you've ever had a coach, a professional coach you before. So maybe there's a few people typing in. I can't see the chat right now, but for those of you who have, that's great. And so you'll be maybe familiar with some of the things that we're going to go through in this session. However, I just wanted to make the distinction, which is that, a therapist traditionally will look into the past and help you to move forward into the present by helping you, let's say, with those, the origins of those negative beliefs. And those might be rooted in your childhood, et cetera, in different experiences that you've had, and usually brings that up to kind of converse. A coach may sometimes do that at times, but our main focus is on how clients can change and shift their perspectives and current behaviors to move towards the future with a plan and a goal. And sometimes therapists do use that as well. And now much more. We're kind of mixing the two a little bit, but just to be clear on that. And then lastly, and very importantly, is that coaches we're companions, we're supporters, we're igniters, we're facilitators, but we are not consultants. We do not bring solutions. It's you who brings the solution. So what we do help you is we bring tools, we ask questions that will hopefully help you shift that perspective. So with all of that being said, I'd love to hear how do you define peace and well-being? So maybe if you can type in the chat or even come off mic and say it. What comes to mind when you hear the word peace? Or even well-being? I see the chat now. There's so let's see what's in the chat. I'm trying to see calm, serenity. There's calm, having a sense of calm, decreased levels of stress. Oh, and thank you for those of you who answered before. Security, feeling content, stability, contentment. Exactly. Ooh, equanimity and capacity to accomplish things you want to do. I love that. Oh my goodness, you're already way ahead of the game. Relaxation, a relaxing evening at home with loved ones. Ah, love that. Okay, so all of these are, of course, correct. There's no right or wrong answer here. So I wanted to share these definitions with you that I picked up from, one of them is from Psychology Today. The other one is from actually the New Zealand Mental Health Promotion Agency. Wouldn't it be great if we had one of those, a national level agency doing that at some point in this country? But so the first, you'll see that throughout those two definitions of well-being, there are these elements that you mentioned. So health, not only health, but happiness, prosperity, having good mental health, but also being able to deal with stress and the day-to-day life stresses, a high level of life satisfaction, a sense of meaning or purpose, realizing your potential, a sense of connection to others, the ability to manage stress again, working productively. So all of those are in those two. And then if you look at the last definition, which is the United Nations definition of peace, it's actually dignity and well-being for all, not just the absence of war, as a lot of us know in our practice. But so well-being is very much incorporated into the definition of peace, whether it's inner peace or world peace. And so what I wanted to show you is that, and of course you all probably know this already, but conflict, stress is inevitable in life. And so what's important is, how do we manage to realign ourselves every time, right? It's a day-to-day thing, right? A daily practice that we need to engage in, is just as we, either go to the gym or even, go on our commute to work, or, make our dinner, we should be engaging in a practice of alignment with ourselves and of redefining every day, how do I feel at peace and in well-being within myself? And so let me see. So the next slide this is a little model that I came up with. There's a lot of research around this model. It's very similar, if you're familiar with the Japanese concept of ikigai. It's somewhat similar. It has some of those elements. It comes from leadership coaching, but also has a lot of positive psychology, if you're familiar with that realm. And so essentially what we're looking at here is, in the center, you have your own peace, your own well-being, your own fulfillment. Now, this model, by the way, you can apply to a team. I work with this model a lot in teams. I worked with it a lot at USAID and other places. And so, if you or your team have these four elements that are surrounding the model, so purposeful and inclusive leadership, compassionate connection, mindful balance, and joyful creativity, you can sort of come to that alignment again. And so in today's session, because we have an hour and a half, we'll focus on element one, which is basically purposeful and inclusive leadership. But I'll tell you a little bit right now what I mean by each of those, because I think it's important to give you a little bit of some definitions. So in the purposeful leadership, or purposeful and inclusive leadership area, what does this mean? This means that we are living and leading our life with a vision for what we want to do with our life, with some sort of purpose to it. It means that we are exercising our passions, our gifts, and our values, usually for a higher purpose. Now, don't get me wrong, and we'll come to that in a minute. We'll talk about that in another slide. A purpose doesn't always have to be either connected to work. And you can have multiple purposes. So for example, I can definitely have a purpose as a coach to inspire people and to do this kind of work and get paid for it. But I can also, and I do have I find purpose and joy in some creative work that I do, for example, watercolor painting. And how do I make people's lives better with that? Because, I've had Several people come up to me and say, oh, could you paint a painting for me? And, and I'm like, well, I'll do it for free. I mean, I'm not doing this to get paid. This is just a hobby, and I'm not too good at it. And I remember a friend of mine, her niece had passed away, and she just wanted a painting to remember her niece by. And I painted it for her, and it meant a lot to her, even though it wasn't paid work. So that's what I mean. You can even always, you can find purpose in being a parent, for example. You can find purpose in all these different things. So what I mean is by this is that as long as you have that element in your life present, and of course, today we are talking a bit more about career and, job loss. We've been through this. And so it's important that as you go through this session and as you move forward in your job search, that you always remind yourself of that purpose, of those values, because that will be your North Star, essentially. That is what lays the ground for the rest. Now, next is compassionate connection. Compassionate connection is really important because it's connection that brings purpose to our lives. As you've all, been alive a long time. And so we all know that the way that we get our jobs or that we progress in life, it's not by ourselves. We have people around us that help us. And so, it's really important to remember not to lose that element, even if you're, in this job search and you might be a little bit down right now because you lost your job or you may not have lost your job. Maybe you're just thinking of a new career pivot. But even in that, do not forget to always connect with family and friends, because that brings balance. And that brings me to the third element, which is mindful balance. And what I mean by mindful balance is that this is the key to self-awareness, to all of this work that we're doing. This is, the best leaders that I've encountered in my leadership coaching practice are the ones that make space for a mindful practice that is not related at all to work and that brings them in tune with themselves. And that can be, maybe you have a spiritual practice. Maybe you like meditating. Maybe you enjoy going for runs and that really clears your head. Whatever it is, you should incorporate into your daily life a practice that gives you time with yourself, not with anybody else, just with yourself. And that is hopefully in silence or some form of that disconnects you basically from the chatter of the mind, right? And another part of mindful balance is that, and I posted something, by the way, if we're not connected on LinkedIn, feel free to reach out to me, and you can follow some of my posts. And basically in a recent post, I posted something by Arthur, and I can't remember his last name, but he's a very famous professor at Harvard. And he has, wrote a book with Oprah and all this kind of stuff, but he focuses on the science of happiness. And one of the things that he has written about is how our culture is a culture of achievement, right? It's a culture of doing and getting busy. And it is very much aligning us to define ourselves via our work. And that's incorrect. We are not, we're not human doings, we're human beings, first of all. And second of all, our identity is not only tied to our work. We all know that we have life as a pie, and it's made up of multiple pies. And one of those pies is work, another pie is our significant other, another pie is our family, another pie is our hobbies, another pie is the fun that we need to have, maybe our, other things. So, our financial wellness. And so when I coach clients, I really look at that pie and I make them go into that exercise and say, okay, how are you balanced around all these pies? Are those, what are you feeling, in your, with your significant other? Maybe are you letting that slide because you're so focused on work, or are you letting your mindful balance slide because you're so focused on work? So that's something to keep in mind. The next and final little bubble or pillar is called joyful creativity. And the reason is that joyful creativity is the expression of our purpose. It's what allows us to use our gifts and our human intelligence, of course, to accomplish what we came to do. And I love this quote by Albert Einstein, where he once said, I believe it's something like, creativity is just intelligence having fun. And so for me, in anything that you do, don't leave out the element of fun, of enjoyment of what you're doing. And so as you're going on your job search or in your career pivot or whatever it is that you are searching for, keep this little model in mind. Keep these little 4 bubbles in mind, these pillars, and ask yourself, will this job bring me, is this aligned with my purpose? Is there something about it that, where I am exercising my compassionate connection or connection with others? And, how much do I value that? Mindful balance. Am I always keeping a space in my life to be in balance so that I can bring myself to work in a balanced state? And lastly, and will this job allow me the mindful or the balance that I need in my life, let's say with family, flexibility, etc. And then also with joyful creativity, will it bring me joy? Is this something that's going to bring me a sense of creativity and joy and innovation possibly? Lastly, on the 10 core values and ground rules, I'm not going to go through each of them because it'll take too much time, but essentially these are some core values and ground rules that I like to work with when I go into a session like this. I'll just ask you if for the sake of time, if we could all just agree that we will be in a mode of acceptance and non-judgment as much as possible if anybody shares anything in the session. Also, of confidentiality is very important. So please, if somebody shares something in the session, I want us all to agree that we will not name names. We will not say so-and-so said this in the session. Oh my gosh, they had this experience. Let's just keep it within this session. And then also in terms of authenticity, integrity, curiosity, and humility, let's just keep ourselves humble. Try and be as humble as possible, but trying to kind of keep a beginner's mind, let's say, to what we're learning here. So purposeful leadership, as we talked about, I mentioned to you that this is the core pillar of what we're going to work on today. And before we get into the exercises, there's these 2 quotes that I want to share with you. One of them is, I love, which is by Oprah, and it says, "Nourish what makes you feel confident, connected, and contented. Opportunity will rise to meet you." And what I mean by sharing this with you is that if you are, let's say, you're jobless right now, you're out of a job, whether it's with the US government or with something else, or you're on that search, as long as you're doing those small things that make you feel confident, connected, and contented with yourself or fulfilled, opportunity will rise to meet you. And so, maybe as you are applying, because, let's say, you're going on LinkedIn, you're doing your applications, but try and leave some time for things that make you feel confident. Maybe you feel really confident doing a talk like I am, and you're doing it for free for a group like this. Or maybe you feel really confident just dancing and you want to take a dance class, do it. Maybe you feel really connected, you haven't connected as much with your family or your friends. Go on that, take that break out of applying and go connect with your friends, because they will kind of bring you again into that joy that you need to continue with your journey on applying for that job or doing what you need to do. And then contented, maybe you feel really contented just sitting with your cat on your balcony having a hot tea. I don't know, whatever it is that makes you feel just contented, save some time to do that. And then the last quote is, "Appreciate where you are in your journey, even if it's not where you want to be. Every season serves a purpose." And I genuinely believe that the more that we view these pauses as opportunities, the more that we can really examine ourselves. And maybe this is an opportunity for exactly what you're doing today, is taking that pause to really think through, what is it really that I want my next step to be? So we're going to move into a little exercise about values in a moment, but I wanted to define how you can identify your purpose. So this is your why. Your purpose is your North Star. It's your why. It should have in it these 4 core elements. Okay, the first one is that it should bring you joy and that you should be very passionate about it. It should be kind of like it should have that passion resonance to it. Secondly, is that it should flow and feel effortless when you do it, as if you were born to do it. These are what I call your gifts. So for example, for me, I'm very passionate about helping others. And my gift is that my communication, my speaking or my writing are a gift. So identify whatever, and that flows easily to me. I don't have to, I practice a little, but I don't have to, in other words, it doesn't strain me to do it. Thirdly is your values, which we're going to get into in a moment. You're honoring your values. As you're performing as you're performing whatever job or whatever duty or whatever it is that you're involved in, it's resonating and aligning with your values and not deviating from those. And lastly, it also improves the lives of others and contributes to humanity in some way. And this is the higher purpose or the higher, the higher calling aspect of it. Now, again, as I mentioned before, you can have multiple purposes in life. These change, definitely my purpose, or how I define my purpose was very different when I was, coming into, let's say, college or even out of grad school, to what it is now. And so just know that whatever comes out of here, it will evolve necessarily in a couple of years, even in a couple of months, and that's okay. Same with your values. Values will change across life and across time because, we grow as individuals, we're evolving. So with that said, I wanted to start with our little exercise on prioritizing our values. And I'll just briefly explain it. And then if you have any other questions, you can type them in the chat, or you can, raise your hand or come off the mic. But essentially what I want us to do is, and what I want you to do, is to take a look at this list of values. Now, this list, it has been borrowed from a wonderful book by Brene Brown. If you guys have not encountered Brene Brown, I know Nanako's like, oh my goodness. Yes, I mean, if you have not encountered her, please take a moment to watch one of her Power of Vulnerability talks, or one of those that are online, or they're free on YouTube, that she became really famous for. But she wrote this book called Dare to Lead. And this comes from that book. And that book has wonderful tools that you can use throughout this journey. And throughout, any journey that you're going on in your career, as a leader. And by the way, when I talk about leadership, I don't only want us to think of leaders as, the person in the boardroom or the person who is the head of an organization. You can be a leader in any way, shape, or form. You can be a leader in your household. You are a leader in your household, right? So it just depends how we use that term, but she's wonderful. I highly recommend it. And so what I want you to do in this exercise is to take a look, if the value that is not, if you find a value that you come up with that is not reflected on here, please do add it. You can use a value that's not on here, but these are an exemplary list. And so what I want you to do is take some time to circle or to write down your top 5 values. And you can group them. So for example, I would group, in my case, making a difference in humanitarianism with service, for example. That would be one grouping that I would make. You might want to group others. And so that's totally fine. You might group like democracy with loyalty. I don't know. But so I think depending on how you group them, you'll see that you'll come to like a very specific way of why they're important to you. So I want you to take a moment, write down your top 5 values, and write why each of them is important, okay? And then we'll have a share and talk around this. So take a couple of minutes to look at these, and we'll talk and share. And I'm going to take a moment and try and write mine out. Okay, how are we doing? Let me check on the chat and see. Oops, sorry. Yes, Nanako, go ahead.
Ask a question. So I'm also going through all of this because
Yes.
I too have been affected by my main job. So I'm also really enjoying this exercise.
Yes.
In thinking about the values, is it just like picking out like words or concepts that jump out to me? Is that
Thank you.
like what do
Thank
you?
you for, thank
I'm writing
you.
down so many words. I'm like, oh,
Thank you. I jumped over that and I should not have. And thank you for reminding me. I was going to give you a definition of what a value is. And we can each have a different definition, but this is mine, and then you can kind of adapt it to yours. But so basically, what I want you to look for in a value, these are the what lays the foundation for your purpose, and they are core principles, whether it is or fundamental beliefs that motivate your attitudes, your actions, and that help determine what is important to us. Okay, and so in terms of what you're doing here, you know, and they're also, I can also say that they are, they can embody personal qualities that we want to embody, right? Personal qualities that we want to embody, the sort of person we want to be, the manner in which we want to treat ourselves and others. But also, I think, you know, they can also provide, for example, general guidelines of conduct, right? Of that interaction. So all of that, it's kind of, and then what I will say is that out of this exercise, what I want us to do and what will happen is you're kind of using these values, the way you're going to use these values or these 5 core values. And again, they will change and they can be more. this is I like to narrow them down to 5. Because that way you can sort of post them, you know, by your, you know, on your office board or on your computer, or even, you know, carry them with you wherever you go. Because in that way, these are the core elements and sort of guidelines that you want to drive your life by. I hope that that's and sorry, I should have said that right at the beginning. Hope that that's a bit clearer.
thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
And one last thing is that values, you know, these are your personal values. There's an interesting exercise that I do with teams, which is how do your personal values align with your teams or align with that organization's, right? And so, for example, when you are applying for a job, when these words, you know, you'll see that in some job applications, for example, some of these words might pop out in terms of, you know, whether it's, I don't know, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Maybe there's a job around that you are really, you know, passionate about. Maybe they value, you know, an independent worker, you know, who's able to work independently. And so you really value that, or who takes initiative, right? That's another value in there. Maybe they value someone who's able to travel a lot and have like that flexibility, and maybe you want to do that. So all of these also can help you identify the right job for you, so that you're not just applying to everything and anything under the sun, but you're aligned with who you are. And so that job, and you know, I know that it's difficult, especially now with the job shortage that, you know, that is going on around the country, and especially in our neck of the woods, in our realm, right? But even if you're applying to the private sector or whatever it is, whatever area, that's how you can start to see, okay, maybe, you know, maybe in this area of the private sector, maybe this job around diversity, equity, and inclusion for Visa or MasterCard or whatever, you know, maybe that could be something that I could do. I mean, it may not be, you know, what I was doing before, but it could somehow be aligned to my values. So I don't know if anybody at this time wants to share, maybe they, you know, you want to share one of your values and why it's important to you, or you want to share all of them, or, you know, or you don't, that's also okay. But I was just curious if anybody's done this exercise before, if this is their first time. And by the way, they don't have to be perfect. You know, and again, whatever comes out of the session, you can always change and kind of go back to. But I'd love to hear if anybody here has had can share their experience just now. And then in the chat too, if you don't feel like, like coming off mic. Sorry, and I can't see, I'm trying to find the chat, but oh, here it is. Okay, I found it. Thank you. So I can see finding the top 5 feels heavy, but I like the idea of using it to find jobs. Heavy feels a bit too emotional with what's going on. Got it. I understand. For sure. I mean, it's really, and it's a difficult time right now. And I think, whether it's here or someplace else, it's important to, whenever you feel comfortable and ready, to take that moment, and maybe ask yourself, but it doesn't have to be now. I agree that right now it might be too raw for you. I know, I know Nanako's like, it's hard to narrow it down to 5. My list is like 15. Totally. And if I were coaching you, I would be like, okay, so let's see how those 15, can be bundled up, right? So I don't know, Nanako, give me an example of a couple that you were kind of juggling with.
Yeah, I like the list is very long, but I did try to group them. So like
Yeah.
I have I saw collaboration. That was like the first one that jumped out to me, and
Yeah.
community. So I kind
Yes.
of put those together. Like I see those as, community collaboration, making a difference,
Yes.
and service. I kind of felt like those went together. But then
Yes.
I have a ton like learning, justice, dignity, diversity,
Uh-huh.
authenticity, authenticity. There we go.
Uh-huh.
Gratitude, grace, like that. Like I have a whole list.
Yeah. And so, you might, I mean, but what's important is that, what you just said, for example, I mean, I can see how justice and dignity could be, depending on how you're defining it. And this is which question that I would ask you is, okay, what is justice to you? What does it mean to you? So give me an example. What does justice mean to you?
I was thinking justice in terms of like social justice.
Mm-hmm. So that, depending on, okay, so social justice and, could dignity be a part of social justice?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think that goes well together.
For example, I mean, I'm just thinking, and you mentioned, okay, another one that you mentioned was learning, and then you mentioned gratitude, and what else?
Grace.
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 Oh, I love that. I mean, in a way, I could see, I mean, depending again on how you define it. How do you define grace? What does grace mean to you?
I was thinking like grace is in like giving yourself grace. Like, you're not going to get it perfect every time. Like you're allowed to make mistakes, that kind of grace.
Yes.
I know grace can mean that's a word that can mean a lot of things, but that's how I was thinking of it.
That's amazing. And I like how you also mentioned gratitude, because in a way, for me, given what you just said, those go together, right? Like
Yeah.
almost like being grateful to yourself and giving yourself grace, and not being sort of in that perfectionist mindset all the time or whatever. We're all high achievers here, and we tend to sometimes want everything to be just the way we want it. So, but thank you so much for sharing. So, I mean, it's just to give everybody here an idea of what the exercise could look like for you. And obviously, I don't have the time to go, through each of your cases in this session. Feel free to, email me or whatever if you'd like a free initial coaching session. We can definitely work on that later. But this can help you. And as I mentioned earlier, it can help to really guide you a little bit, to start being a guidepost to, okay, like, definitely, for example, in Nanako's case, she wants to move towards, social justice jobs, or jobs that in some way, shape, or form foster that, right? And that have a collaborative environment. Nanako, you probably won't be that happy if you're only working by yourself on a research project, right? And, cooped up in a lab, for example. That definitely doesn't sound like it would be you necessarily. And so that hopefully can help each of you as you drill down into these. And, you could, today you might come up with 15, and then you start narrowing down and ask yourself the question, why? What is it about this word? What is the meaning? What does this word mean to me? Don't take the word just for, for face value for what you think it means. Really ask yourself the question and drill down into that word, into that value, and what it means to you in your life and how you want to live it. Okay, same for your career. So in your career, how do I want to live this value, making a difference? How do I want to, this gratitude and grace, like, how do I want to live that value as I walk through this journey? So unless anybody has any questions, any other questions that anybody has about this example, or how they could or how they could do it themselves, or how they could apply it elsewhere. If not, and you can, as we go through the session, you can also ask me if you have any other questions. But we'll go into our next exercise if that's okay with everybody. So this one is an exercise that I call the visualization of our gifts. Thank you, Anya. I see your thumbs up. So this little exercise is what I call your visualization of gifts. Now, I would ask, and I should have said this at the beginning as well, that for this one, it's kind of like a guided, I wouldn't say meditation per se, but it's a guided exercise that I'm going to ask you to close your eyes for. And kind of be hopefully in a closed space. So as much as possible, or at least with headphones on, and not be bothered by anybody. So if you can, and I was going to play this very nice music, but Nanako and I tried and we could not get it to work. So we're just going to go ahead and do this now. So if you can with me, just close your eyes, get into a very comfortable position. And take a deep breath in through your nose and breath out through your mouth. And we're going to do that 3 times. So breathe in through your nose. Deep breath in, deep breath out. And again, deep breath in through your nose. Deep breath out through your mouth. And I want you to start feeling how from the top of your head, your body starts relaxing. So I want you to start feeling your top of your head. I want you to feel how your muscles, your mouth muscles, your neck muscles, your shoulder muscles start relaxing. I want the relaxation, I want you to feel as if there's this warm light just relaxing you all over your body, and it's going all the way down your body, down your hands, down your arms, down your pelvis, all the way down, down your glutes and your legs and down your feet, and you feel so grounded. And breathe. And what I want you to imagine right now is that I want you to visualize yourself in a moment in your life where you were your most vibrant and alive. I want you to think of that example where you were completely connected with who you are, and you were sort of celebrated by others for this. Others noticed you and noticed that you did this seamlessly, effortlessly. Notice how you flowed naturally, how you felt like it was no hard work, you were just being you. You were shining. People recognized you for it, and you felt joyous, free, and purposeful. Think of some of the skills you used, maybe some of the qualities you displayed, and think of how you felt when you were using those. Take a few minutes to feel yourself and see yourself in that moment. And now I want you to slowly open your eyes, come back to your body and the room, and write down what you saw, what you felt. What was that experience like? And I want you to write down the qualities that you felt yourself displaying in that moment. How would somebody describe you to someone else? What were you doing that was just so natural, that you felt this is so normal to you? And when you're done writing, if you wouldn't mind putting it in the chat, maybe what you felt, what you saw, um, what came up during this. Did any emotions or feelings come up? Um, I'd love it if you could share with me and let me know. And I know for a lot of us, as was prior, shared before, this can be an emotional time, and that's okay. And it's good. It's good that you're going through this process, um, and you're here for a reason. Let me see what's in the chat. Nabil, compassionate, empathetic, connected, innovative, boundless energy. Ooh, I got goosebumps. Ooh, Nabil. I'm just so curious about each of you and what what you've been doing prior to this or currently. Wow, I love that. Innovative, boundless. I love the boundless energy. Let's see. Amandine brought up a bit of emotions. Yeah, I mean, it did for me too when I first did this, I can tell you. I envisioned myself back in my in-country teams, truly connected on a human level, despite all of our differences, finding commonality and being able to work together through really tough times. I felt connected to humanity, compassionate, respectful, truthful. Oof, love that. Wow, what a description. I can only imagine. And I can see that you used to work for Counterpart International, so I can only imagine. I used to do a lot of that work too, and I can tell you those were some of the most meaningful moments of my career. We're definitely out there with communities and doing that kind of work where indeed we find commonality. But we can do that in many ways, shapes, or forms, right? So thank you for sharing that. That's very profound. Anya, able to see and explain how different pieces fit together into the big picture. Ooh, that's a skill that a lot of, jobs are. I've seen that a lot in job descriptions. It's kind of like that's a very important skill to have, right? Not everybody has that. So you're definitely a strategic person, a big picture person that can then kind of explain how all that fits together. And I think any job with strategy in it, you'd be great at for sure. And I wouldn't be surprised if you've already been doing that. Fearless, empowered, intriguing, confident, intriguing. Ooh, that's a new one. I love that one. I wonder what that means, but fearless. Oh, love that. Vibrant, collaborative. Let me see. Vibrant, collaborative, global sharing and impact. Effective negotiation, so important, right? In any job, but in some jobs very specifically, and bringing people together to realize change. Courageous, kind, dancing, and fun. Ooh, I'm with you, Liz. That's my kind of girl. Um, Carla, I was surprised. I thought of a moment as a Peace Corps volunteer over 20 years ago with students. Joy, lightness, satisfaction, peace, accomplishment. Thank you so much, Carla, for sharing, because a lot of the time, um, you know, it's interesting. We think we have to think of a moment recently, right, in our career recently where we performed well, but it can definitely be, and sometimes actually thinking of our childhood or even of our youth or of our younger years, or can be so meaningful, because then Laura says hers was long long ago too, because those moments remind us, right, of maybe we've lost touch with that person back then, and we want to bring that back to the now. So thank you so much for sharing. Let's see. Educating, bringing new experiences and understanding to others, making connections. Educating, Amanda, I love that. That's a new one that we haven't heard. And bringing new experiences and understanding to others and making connections. So definitely, it sounds like part of your purpose is illuminating people in some way, shape, or form, is kind of illuminating their experience. I wouldn't be surprised if you'd be a good coach or a counselor of some sorts. Okay, thank you all so much for sharing. That's so wonderful. Actually, this is one of my favorite exercises. And if we get to the last one that I have planned, I think you'll like it too. I have a feeling. Okay, so quickly before we go on into our next exercise, I'm really glad you took that visualization to heart, is because those gifts, and because the values, so we talked about values, right? And we talked about in this little, how do you identify your purpose is, your gifts, what you're passionate about, but your gifts, which we just sort of started identifying, right? So out of those qualities, you can see, oh, okay, like, I'm a really good teacher, or I'm a really good counselor, or you know what, I'm really good at, like, it's effortless for me to bring people together. So maybe it's, building bridges, and so a lot of jobs, right, have in their descriptions, stakeholder management. That's perfect for a person who can build those connections. I think one of you mentioned something about seeing the big picture and putting those pieces together. That's a great job for somebody who's like at a strategic position, who has to be sort of in a strategic role, envisioning an organization and moving it forward. So those are your gifts, okay? And we already talked about your values, which were that list. So you're kind of, in there identifying, or getting close to identifying, that broader purpose, okay? And then, of course, how you can impact others, which we'll talk about in a second. But before we do that, and I think somebody else commented in the chat, but I'm trying to, the chat for me in this function is hard to find. But I think somebody typed in, and I wanted to read what it was, but I just can't find it. Anyway, I'll look at it in a second if I can, put myself
It
off
was
of.
just David was just saying he has to sign off for an appointment. That's
Oh,
Thank
okay.
you.
All right, thanks. All right, so in this example, we're talking about boundaries. And why do I bring up boundaries? And you know what? I'm a recovering non-boundary haver. Okay, I had, like, at one point in my life, I think I never knew how to say no, and I was not very good about telling people, just telling people that I needed my space or my time, or even at work, right? If I got too many assignments, I would always say, yes, I'll take that assignment. But I think with experience and with doing a lot of self-work, I knew that if I was gonna be loyal to my values, I needed to have boundaries. So boundaries can be both internal boundaries about self-regulation, so what I was just talking about, right? And also external boundaries with others. And there's, I have this little chart. I took it off of positivepsychology.com. By the way, that website has a lot of really cool free tools that you can all, use. You can download them. This is one of them, the little charts that explains types of boundaries, and it goes, through the internal, the emotional, the mental, the time boundaries, right? I can only stay for 30 minutes. This is my limit. Like, I think the person who just logged off, they have good boundaries. They needed to go. Or self-regulation boundaries, which, as I just mentioned, are very important, because these help you to understand, am I expending too much energy on others or on work or on, and not myself? And so that one, for example, can also be linked to what I was talking about just now, which is your values. Am I really being loyal to these values, to what I've said? So for example, if I really value time, if I'm in, I really value independence and I value some, time to myself, am I really giving myself that, as I'm trying to juggle, my family, my significant other, my work priorities and all this? If, am I taking that space to myself or giving myself that time? Or and also very importantly, as you can see on the slide, of course, but boundaries are learned. And so these are usually learned in childhood. And so if they were not valued or respected as a child, you may have poor boundaries as a result. Boundaries can also be about asking for more. Let's say that we want to negotiate our salaries or better salary. Let's say we want to negotiate better conditions, or when we're in that process of getting interviews and we come up to that salary negotiation point, are we really able to ask, for more, for what we need, for what, and so that's where we also define our bottom lines, but those are boundaries as well, okay? And as I mentioned, boundaries really empower you to stick to your values, to your goals, and so that you can stay true to your purpose. So what I encourage you to do is to really, now that what you want to, let's say, focus on in terms of values, and that you have these gifts, and all these great things that you're aspiring to, and we're going to get closer to that goal in a second, to that exercise about defining a purpose statement. What I want you to really focus on is to not go back on your values particularly. So I'll give you an example. I was working for a wonderful organization for the longest time, the World Bank, and I love them, and I still, do consulting for them. But in my current position where I was working, I felt that, I was losing some of that joy. I was, for me, one of my values, and I wrote it down as we were doing the exercise together. For me, joy and having fun is really a really big value. It's a really important value for me. Another one is that kind of that mindfulness, that mindful balance we talked about. And for me, it translates into a spiritual practice. So I need to be able to have some meditation time. I need to be able to do some of my yoga. And so that practice really is core. And I found myself just traveling too much. I was going to Africa every month from DC. I used to live in Nairobi, and so from there it was much easier, but I was traveling way too much. I basically found that I wasn't having a life outside of work. And so for many years, it took me years to realize that I was not living true to my values. And so when I finally did the work, made the realization, I sort of was like, oh, okay, well, maybe I need to do something else. And that's when I did my coaching certification. And I realized that, hey, maybe I want to work independently for a while. And so I redefined my values. I also moved out of Washington, D.C., closer to my family in Miami for a while, because I knew that my parents were getting older, that was a value at that time, that I was really, family was becoming a big value for me at the time, and creating one of my own. So those are just examples of how you need to also keep in mind, what are those areas in your pie of life? And that's another exercise that I do with my clients, but you can look it up. It's called the Wheel of Life. It's a very popular coaching tool that you can find online. And you can just kind of grade yourself and be like, okay, which area of the pie is not in balance, and which of my values am I not living accordingly? So last exercise before closing in the session, and I think we still have a bit of time, and I have another visualization that I want us to end with, but this is the exercise where we try and bring it all together. So in this exercise, what I want you guys to do is to take, you kind of have looked at what your values are. You have an idea of what your gifts are. And so what I want you to look at is this little formula, and we're going to write out a purpose statement. Each of you is going to write out your own purpose statement. So the first part, the formula goes like this. I am and so the metaphor of what you are, of how, this is what you are, how you see yourself. and kind of like what it's also a little bit of your gifts, but it's really a metaphor for you. Okay. And sorry, somebody's asked in the chat or made a comment.
Just someone else who needs to sign off.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Okay. Oh, thank you, Patricia. All right. And oops, sorry, flipped through the wrong slides. Okay. So last thing is here on this, so what I want you to do is think of, okay, the metaphor for yourself, then the impact that you want to have. So this impact can also be called your legacy. Okay, this is the legacy that you want to leave. Like if you were to pass away tomorrow or anytime soon, what is the legacy that you want to leave this world with? And that's the why. That's the kind of like the real heart of the impact that you want to leave. And then lastly, through, and then your gifts. So this is the how you want to do it. And so I'll give you these two examples. One is of a financial advisor client of mine. So he came up with this. It says, I am the voice of logic and calm. So that's his metaphor for himself or how he operates, that helps others to find financial stability and abundance. So that's the impact that in the end he wants to leave. He wants to help others to find their financial stability and abundance. That's his legacy to others, to humanity, to the world, to whoever he's working for. And then through and the wise counsel, that's his gift. That's what he finds. He just finds it easy and effortless. Remember, that's what that visualization where you were seeing yourself, that's the part where that goes in. Okay. And in a way, it could have been flipped like he could have been, I am the wise counsel, and then the voice of logic and calm could be his gift too. I mean, but he wrote it this way. So in his view, that was that. And then I'll give you mine. This is my last personal statement. I think it more or less still stands when I did this exercise last time. But it's basically, I am the leading light of joy. So this is the metaphor for myself. I see myself as a leader, some qualities, in that you could describe yourself. I see myself as a leader, but I also see myself as a person with light, with a lot of joy. And so that's how I would describe myself. And then can help others transform into their most authentic version of themselves. So that's my impact. That's what, my why. That's the legacy that I want to leave through my gifts of inspiration and communication. So as I mentioned to you, I feel that earlier on, I feel that what comes naturally to me is to communicate in an inspirational manner. So what I want you to try and do now is take a couple of minutes with with this formula and take a stab at writing. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to come up with it, completely, but start putting down ideas. And I want you to share with me, what comes up. I'll give you a minute or so, a couple of minutes. Or even if you have reactions now, I'd love to hear them if you have, or see them in the chat. If you have any thoughts that are coming up or any questions too. Let's see, I see somebody's commenting in the chat. Interesting. I had a few of my values from the previous exercise reappear here. Oh, that's great. And that tells you that, and that's a really, apologies. No problem, Carla. I know that you I need to only have participate. My kid came home through school. No worries, no worries. I'm glad that you're here. Thank you for being here while your kid is having a tough time. So thank you for making time for yourself, even though your child is not feeling well. No, what I was going to say is that to the comment that was made before, to Amandine's comment, your values will be reflected here, right? Because even in the way that you describe yourself in that metaphor, or even in the impact that you want to leave, right? Because that's, as I mentioned, that should be a core part of what all of the mix of these elements of your values, of your gifts, they should all somehow lead to something around this statement. This statement should be based on those, in other words. So I don't know, did anything else come up for anybody? I know when I did this exercise, it was hard. It took us, we did this initially in our first coaching certification seminar in one of our classes. And I remember it was both difficult, but also, kind of blew my mind. It was fun. I mean, I think a lot of us used some, fun metaphorical language, but it was really profound, I think, in the way that, that I was kind of, I felt myself a little freer and creative. Like, you can be creative with this. Just, it doesn't have to be strictly, a career purpose statement. It can be, a life purpose statement, hopefully, and then you can mold and shape into other things. So I don't want you to only to be thinking about your career, because that's not our full expression of who we are, right? But hopefully it can be useful in that regard too, because then it can lead you with those qualities down the road of that. It can be a bit more of a compass that can lead you down that path. So, for example, it was clear to me when I was doing this, I wasn't finished with the coaching certification. I was still working at the World Bank, and I knew that I was still doing my peace building work, but I knew that there was something missing in what I was doing. And I knew that, a lot of colleagues would come into my office and like they kind of, just tell me all their, they'd open up. And I would sit there and I'd think, and a lot of them actually said, Catalina, you could go into therapy or something. And I thought, you know what, maybe I have a gift there. Maybe there's something to that. And that's when I discovered coaching. And then, this purpose statement kind of came out of that. So, and I'm still, by the way, working in the realm of, peace building, conflict prevention. But I'm finding more and more that I'm merging these two worlds as I feel more comfortable, and more aligned with what I do. But I found that I was transforming the lives of others also through, in my teams that I work in any team really. So as long as I'm bringing those qualities of myself. Nanako, I don't know, did you have anything that you wanted to share from this exercise, or anything come up?
I would just say that I really struggle with metaphors. That's why I didn't share. I am not a metaphor person. So that's gonna take me like some time to think of a good one.
Yeah, and it does take time, I have to say. And I think, where you could start off is, what would, and this is something I tell it's like a homework that I leave, and I can leave all of you if that's, you're so called to it. But I would ask that you, after this session, if you feel so inclined, go ask some of your friends, or some of the, maybe former colleagues or people who you really trust. Ask them to describe you. How would they describe you? How would they, what are some of the qualities that they would say about you? And so, and ask them, if I were a metaphor, what would I be? And that can help you kind of craft this statement later. But I encourage all of you to either, I hope, you either watch the video later or come back to this slide, and to the other slides on the values, and think through it. And then once you have your statement, you'll see that it'll change. I think I redid mine, I don't know how many times before I came up with this version, right? So it's going back to it and then doing that exercise of asking other people, like, how would you describe me as? What do you think I'm good at? Nabil asks, Just curious if the purpose statement could be more inward looking and what I would be happy with before I kick the bucket. Yes. Yeah, I mean, exactly. I think that, the part where, where I said, I think it's the impact, that's the legacy. So indeed, that should be kind of like, what do I want to leave behind, before all this is over? What is my contribution to this world? And I think right now, a lot of people are feeling a little bit down because, in lots of ways, whether it's the government or, other are telling them that, you're not worthy, or they're feeling worthless, right? Because you've been kicked out of what you thought was your purpose, right? And so I think this is a good way to reconnect with that and to know that you are purposeful just because you were born. You are worthy just because you were born. It does not mean that you are less than because you lose your job. You are worthy just because you are. And I hope all of you know that. It took me a long time to learn that, but I hope that you all know that everybody who's here, no matter who we are, we're worthy just because we were born. So with that, I want to wrap up, and I want to leave us with a last exercise, which is called meeting your inner self. So this is going to be, again, a short visualization like we did last time. So I'm going to ask you once for a last time to join me in closing your eyes, if you can, if you're able to, if your children or other tasks allow you to, I understand. But if you can, take a moment with me and close your eyes and sit in a comfortable position. And again, we are going to take those deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. And again, deep breath in and out. And last one, deep breath in and out. And now I want you to take a moment and start feeling more and more relaxed. Start feeling that your body's relaxing, your forehead's relaxing, your mouth and your tongue are relaxing. Again, your throat, your neck, your shoulders are feeling heavy and relaxed. All of your body is going to a deep relaxation. And as you're going into that deep relaxation, I want you to go to a place that brings you peace in your mind. This can be a place that you went to in childhood, maybe. Maybe it's a place that you've been to on vacation and that was just the utmost beautiful and peaceful place you've ever been to. Maybe it's a beautiful garden. Maybe it's your back garden, your backyard. Maybe it's a beach somewhere, or just a place that has brought you much joy and peace at any time of your life. Go to that place right now. And don't worry if you can't picture it. It'll slowly just allow your mind to take you to a place of peace. And once you're there, I want you to start feeling, maybe it's a warm breeze against your cheek, or maybe you're in the mountains somewhere hiking. Maybe you're by a lake. I want you to hear the birds chirping in the background. If you're in a forest, maybe you're in your yard. Take a few moments to take it all in and just relax there. Now imagine that wherever you're sitting or standing, there's something coming towards you and it's friendly. You can't tell who or what it is just yet, but it feels friendly, it feels loving, it feels wise, it feels strong. Now, as it comes closer, you're able to see this energy, this person, this animal, this thing more clearly. Now take a moment to take it in, detail its features, its shape, its form, its energy. Now you suddenly realize that this energy or person or being is like a loving and wise guardian of your soul. They are here to guide you on your life's journey. Sit with your guardian for a moment and take a moment to listen to what it is he or she is saying to you. Now I want you to ask them a question. Ask them, what do I need to know that is for my highest good, that will help me move forward on this journey of life? What do I need to know now? Ask, ask, ask it. Now your guardian has a gift for you. I want you to receive it. They are telling you now that you can always connect with them and feel their presence if you come here to this place with this gift. That you can always use that gift to help guide you if you have lost your way. Notice what it is they are giving to you. What shape does it have? How does it feel? Is it something you can physically touch or not? Take a moment to receive the gift and thank them for it. And now, I want you to say goodbye to them. But it's only a see you later, because you can always come back to this place. This is a way that you can remember to always trust and follow your own guidance, because this guardian tells you that in fact, he or she or it is a part of you, of your higher self. You can always access them. Take a moment to say goodbye. And when you are ready, slowly return to your body and the room and open your eyes. And with that, I wanted to just ask if any of you, as you're slowly coming back into the room, those of you who are still with us on the call, if any of you would like to share who the being was or what it was. I'll share with you in a moment what mine was when I first did this exercise. But I'm curious if anybody saw anybody in particular, maybe an ancestor, or they saw, maybe nothing in particular, just felt an energy. If anybody would like to share, and maybe what you received as the gift. If not, and you feel that it's too personal, that's okay. You can keep it to yourself as a gift from me. I'll tell you a little bit about mine. When I first did my, the coaching, and they took me through this exercise, I mean, I cried a lot. I was in tears, and it was really moving. I had never done something like that before, a visualization like that, and it was sort of, I felt that it was a sort of like an angel almost, but it was almost like it was me. It was like my life force and everything that I wanted to be, and it was this huge being of light and had crazy curly hair like I do, but like in flames. I mean, it was a really, a lot. And they gave me a sphere of light. And so whenever I meditate or I try to take that moment for myself, I put that sphere of light into my heart. And it just helps me. It helps bring peace and calm. And, you can do that if you can do this exercise, by the way, not the whole thing, but you can always go to that place if you're having a tough moment, if you're having a moment in your day, even at work or applying or at home, where you're just overwhelmed, just go, close off, just tell people not to bother you and go into a room and just kind of be with yourself and do this little exercise. My mom, I should probably call her. Oh, she gave me the gift of calmness. Oh my goodness. Yeah, a lot of people see relatives, whether here or, in another plane, but a lot of people, I've had a lot of clients see relatives. A seal visited me with perseverance. Oh my God, I love that. Your spirit animal. I love that. I love that. A seal. Animals, and it's interesting because this exercise brings a lot of people see a lot of animals. I have a friend who saw an elephant once, and when she looked at the meaning, it was a lot of strength, a lot of the things that she needed in her life was brought to her. So I love that. I love that she brought you perseverance because seals are definitely intelligent creatures. So maybe look up the meaning of, type in what spiritual meanings do seals carry? I was at Squam Lake in New Hampshire in the water near a small pagoda on a nearby point. Oh, that sounds so lovely. I was approached by two owls who brought me birch bark in their talons. Oh my goodness. That sounds like such a beautiful place. Thank you, Liz, for sharing. And I wonder, what that means. Maybe it means something to you that they brought you, a little piece of that place, right? So that you can always keep it with you and go there when you need that peace. And not sure what the gift was, but definitely it made me cry, probably in a good way. Yeah, trust me too. And that was the most relaxing thing I've done today. Thank you so much. Thank you, Carla. Oh my goodness. And then let's see, Gwen. Wait, I wanted to see what Gwen wrote. Oh my goodness. In various spiritual traditions, seals are often seen as symbols of prosperity, abundance, intuition, adaptability, and resilience, representing both the natural world and the human capacity to navigate challenges. Oh my gosh. Wow, that's crazy, isn't it? I'm telling you, this is Laura says, a river along a jungle, a cute, calm grandma style bear gave me a big sigh of relief. Oh, don't we need that? All of us need that right now. Thank you so much for sharing. That is so meaningful. All of you had such meaningful experiences. I think I just wanted to leave you with that. Honestly, if anything, out of this session is that, you're like this little man, that we're all like that little man kind of starting the hike, and there's all these mountains that are in front of us. But we just take our purpose, our values, our gifts on that journey and take that gift that you received or that little, the owl, the seal, take that message that being brought you, carry it with you I hope for the rest of your life. And I really hope that you were able to just connect with yourself, to reflect. And it may, the realization or whatever this brings you may come later. It may come after the session. But I hope I brought you a moment of reflection, a moment of calm, a moment of peace. And hopefully you can carry on and we can all carry on with today, with whatever we need to do, with a bit more of that sense in our hearts. Do feel free to reach out to me and touch base with me. This is my my work email, Catalina Quintero at Coachiva.com, or you can also find me on LinkedIn, Catalina Quintero. It's been really wonderful just to be here with all of you. Nanako, thank you so much for having me. Thank you to the Boston Network for International Development, and good luck everybody with everything.
Thank you so much, Catalina. I learned so much and had such great reflections in this session. It sounds like a lot of folks did as well. So thank you again for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come share your knowledge and do a bit of coaching with us today. Please do reach out to Catalina if you'd like to continue the conversation. I'm just going to put in the chat again for folks the 2 links to stay in touch with BNID,
Yes.
sign up for our newsletter, become a BNID member, because we'd love to keep this conversation going. Maybe we can bring Catalina back again for another session. But thank you all so much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your Friday afternoon. Have a wonderful day.
Bye.